So we're talking about a 50% wage subsidy, which the federal government has had out for about a year, and for a long time hardly anybody knew about it. And I don't know how you felt when we sent you the email, but we've picked a few businesses and a few industries that we thought would benefit. And what's been really interesting is a number of people have come back and gone, oh, no, we're not eligible for that. And I was like, yes, you are. So if you're not sure if this is for you, stay for about the first 10 minutes maximum, and I will make sure that by the end of that, you know whether you are eligible or not. Total, this should probably take 30 minutes tops. So I'll be as efficient as I can. I know everybody's ridiculously busy right now. So we'll talk about the subsidy. We'll talk about who's excluded, and we'll get that out of the way pretty early so we don't waste your time. The other thing that's interesting is that there's other funding that's linked. So once you get this 50% subsidy, you can potentially get some other state-based subsidies and things. I'll talk about it in a moment, but I'll give you an example in a couple of slides. But say you're in Victoria, you hire a 45-year-old woman to work in your office, you get $28,000 from the federal government under this program, you get another $20,000 possibly from the state government, another $4,000 from the state government. So you potentially could end up getting, if you're paying her $56,000, you could potentially end up getting $52,000 of that subsidised for the first year. It's kind of insane. I've been in this kind of funding, subsidy, education kind of space for 20 years, and I have never ever seen this much funding being thrown at things. And so why we're doing it, I guess a couple of reasons is it's our area of expertise. I've been in this off and on this industry for some years. We are claiming it ourselves. So most of my employees are on this wage subsidy, and we've managed to hire some additional staff that we wouldn't have probably been able to hire if we didn't have the wage subsidy. After this, what's in it for us, of course, let's get that out on the table. After this session, you might decide to get us to help you, and we'll show you how you can do that on a risk-free basis. I want to make sure that I give you enough information in this that you can do it yourself if you need to. And the other thing, of course, I've got a bit of a soapbox about is that, let me just get this out here. The big companies are claiming it all, and that's been driving me crazy. So we've been like, okay, let's go find some smaller businesses, not tiny ones, but big enough to benefit, but small enough not to have necessarily a full in-house HR team, and tell you about it. Because the thing is, the government is providing amazing financial support at the moment, but most businesses don't realise. Now, there is no limit to the number of employees you can put on this either. I mean, there are some constraints around it, but you're not limited like 5 employees or whatever. So this is an opportunity at the moment to actually get some serious value out of it. Now, let me just give you a little bit of background. Let me just check the comments. I see we've got a couple of questions. Oh, okay, good questions. Let me answer these ones. And I just remembered I want to ask you guys something as well. Is this funding available for existing casual or part-time staff? Lorraine, probably, if you do a couple of things, which I'll explain to you in a moment. So yes, it's worth you sticking around. Is this available to convert somebody currently under a contractor arrangement on a salary? Again, yes, probably, depending on what the terms of their contract. But if they haven't been on a PAYG wage with you before, then yes, it is. Can you also, this is what I meant to ask you, can you pop into the chat what state you are in and what industry you are in, because that will help me make sure that I cover things that are particularly relevant, because it does vary for different industries in different states. Fitness, Victoria Beauty, Queensland Disability, South Australia Entertainment, okay, WA Transport, Queensland Group Training. The Queensland Group Training, you probably are already using it for your clients, but you probably may not have thought about it using it for yourselves as well. Retail Victoria, WA, okay. There's New South Wales Art Gallery. All right. So there shouldn't be anybody here who's working for the state or federal government direct. You can be funded by them, but not working for them. If you're working for them, you're not eligible, which I will explain in a second. Okay, excuse my technology. Why is this not there? Right, some background, just quickly. Late in 2020, which seems like forever ago now, I'm sure, JobKeeper was coming to an end, and you will remember, for any of you that claimed JobKeeper, I mean, it was great, it kept a lot of businesses afloat, but it did have some significant flaws in it, which is going to happen with anything that's worked together that quickly. One of the flaws, and we saw that a lot with, like, if you're in hospitality or retail, particularly anything like that, is that People were getting paid for not working. It was pretty hard on your cash flow at the beginning because you had to pay out everybody and then hope you're going to get it back. And the other thing with it is it didn't really add any value. It was a survival strategy, but it wasn't a improvement or a value add strategy. So it didn't upskill people. It didn't do anything like that. So the thing with this wage subsidy is that it's for training places, but not tradie places. Now, the federal government has been on the news a little bit, I don't know if you've seen them in the last week or two, talking about this program, but they talk about it as if it's just for trades, like just for plumbers and electricians, but it's actually for anybody that you put on an approved course. Now, just the reason I'm giving you a bit of the history is because the criteria has changed, and this is why. So October 2020, just over a year ago, the government said, right, we'll put 10,000 places in it and we'll pay 50% of the wages, capped at 7,000 per quarter. So you get 28,000 if you're paying them 56. If you're paying them more than that, you just capped at the 28. And it could be for anybody. Originally, it was for new workers, existing workers, didn't matter who it was, anyone could get it. And within 3 weeks, all the big companies had grabbed 70% of it. So 70,000 places had been taken, which is what always happens with these things. So 3 weeks later, they went, oh, that's not what we meant. So they tightened up the criteria for existing workers and said, right, if you're putting anyone new on, you can have it. But for existing workers, there are certain rules that you have to meet, which I'll show you those in a second. There were still 130,000 places used by the federal budget last year. And then they uncapped it last year and they extended the deadline for people to get signed up until March this year, like 2 months' time. Then in November just gone, they tightened up the criteria for existing workers again. So I will explain to you in a second, though, what they mean by new workers, because you could have had someone working for you for 20 years as a part-timer and they could still qualify as a new worker potentially, or there's someone that you've hired 3 months ago full-time could still be a new worker. So tell me if that's making a bit of sense. Let me just check the chat. Okay, disability, yes, definitely can help you guys. Cleaning chemicals, yes. Travel, yeah, you guys need it, hey? Software, okay. There's nobody in the chat, this is a double negative, sorry. There's nobody in the chat so far who would not be eligible, if that makes sense. So you should all stick around for a little bit longer. Okay, so that's now been extended out until March, as I said, and this is the name of the program. So it's called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencements, where you might go, oh, no, I know about this now, and it's just for apprentices. No, it isn't. The name is actually a bit misleading. It's being administered under the apprenticeship program, but it's basically for anybody who you sign up as an apprentice or a trainee, and you can put someone on a diploma of leadership and management, one of your middle to senior managers, and they are still qualified as a trainee. So the only criteria is that they get signed up onto an approved qualification, which of course each state has a different list because, you know, that's what we like. But if you sign them up in an approved qualification, you can do it online, you can do it on the job, whatever, then you will get up to 50% of their wages, up to a maximum of 28,000. It's paid quarterly, it's capped at the 7,000 per quarter. If they're a part-timer and you're paying them, say you're paying them 50,000 a year to only work 1 day a week, you still get half. So it's not prorated down for part-timers or anything. You still get the full amount. Basically, you just give them the pay slips after it's approved, which is a bit fiddly. Then you just upload your pay slips every 3 months and they just pay you back half of everything that you've paid to people. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. I'll explain the how in a moment, but I just wanted to give you the big picture. Oh, has something happened to my audio?
Oh, sorry, everyone. It sounds like Melanie's gone very quiet at the moment. We'll just see if we can get her audio organised and we'll get her back online for you. At least we can see her. We could get some sign language going on. Yeah, a bit like that. She could do the song and dance.
Is that any better? Am I back?
It's a little bit, but it just seemed to gradually go down, Melanie.
That is really weird. Have I been leaning? I'm sorry, guys. Because I'm
That's a bit better.
I don't have my, is that all right? We'll keep going. All right. Yeah. Sorry about that. And thank you, Rachel. You might have to chip in. I have no idea what I'm doing. So where was I up to? I was basically saying, where did you hear up to, Rachel? Can you just tell me?
No, sorry, I was too busy trying to work out what your volume problems were.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So let me just summarise it by saying that you will get $7,000 per quarter for each employee that you put on this program, as long as you've paid them $14,000 or more in that quarter. Now, it's pretty much all your new employees, and I'll give you the definitions of new employees in a moment, And it is also a number of your existing employees, a much smaller number than it used to be because they've tightened up on that because people were taking advantage somewhat. But it is, the other thing is that you can double dip between this federal money and some of the state money. So if you are in Queensland or Victoria particularly, and probably soon in New South Wales, then the state will actually give you some wage subsidies and you can claim both. What you can't do is you can't claim two Commonwealth ones. So if you've hired someone who's like long-term unemployed and you've been given $10,000 or something for that, you can't get this as well. But if you are claiming a state subsidy, any of the state subsidies, then those are fine. They absolutely will go together. Okay. So that is just a quick little look at what the paperwork looks like to show you that it's a real thing, which you probably know it's a real thing by now because there's 220,000 people have been signed onto it so far. So it's basically win-win. Why is the government doing it? Because I think they've learned the lesson that if you're going to boost, you need to boost employment and you need to upskill employees at the same time. There's really, paying a wage subsidy is fine, but if you can pay a wage subsidy and actually get people upskilled, then that's going to be much better for the economy in the long run. So just quickly, here is which businesses and which people are eligible. So any employers except for state and federal governments. So for those of you some of you that were in the arts and things like that, and in the disability sector, you can be funded by the government. You just can't be a government department. Let me just check the chat. Is that better? Thank you. Let me know if the sound misbehaves again and I will try and fix it. So this one, I work in my husband's business on the books since July in the construction industry. So Sarah, it depends if you've been part-time or full-time since July, and I'll give you the specifics of that in a moment. If you've been full-time, that might be too long, but I'll show you in a second. Hopefully it'll make sense. So anywhere in Australia. Now here's the thing that's interesting. With JobKeeper, people weren't eligible if their business was owned overseas. So if you're an Australian subsidiary of an overseas company, you couldn't get it. This one doesn't matter. What matters is where are the staff employed. So if your staff are employed in Australia, then you're eligible no matter what your ownership is. Doesn't matter if you're trading under your own name, if you're a proprietary company, if you are a charity, as long as the employees are in Australia. You can't claim for yourself. So because it's a training-based thing, you've got to have an employee that can be getting trained. So if you're a sole operator and you've got no other staff, then you can't do it. But any other business size than that can do it. You can get it for full-time staff and you can get it for part-time staff. And I will talk to you in a second about the possibility of converting some of your casuals to part-time and getting half their wages back when the industrial relations law, which I am not one, disclaimer, is probably going to deem them to be part-timers anyway, which I'll talk about that in a moment just to make it make a bit more sense. Any Australian citizens, any New Zealand citizens, you might be able to tell by my vowel that I'm not originally from Australia. So any of us Kiwis that have been in Australia for 6 months or more can get it, which is also different from JobKeeper. And the other thing that's different from JobKeeper is that anyone who's got any visa that's got a P in front of it so that they are eligible to stay long term are also eligible. So any of the visas that have got no end date on them, so permanent residency versions of those, they can all get it as well. And it doesn't matter if they've got a PhD, if they've got a degree, if they've already got a trade, there's no requirement for them to be unskilled. So you could go and hire a 40-year-old engineer with an engineering degree, put them on this program, put them on a diploma of project management or something that's actually useful for them and get paid half their salary up to $28,000 for 12 months. So is that making sense so far? I hope it is. Let me just check the chat. Okay, Sarah, because you've been full-time, you're probably not eligible, but there are a couple of little ways around it, which I can probably talk to you about separately. Not on them. Yeah. Did I mention existing employees' minimum requirements during the volume issue? I probably, has the sound gone again? Did my sound go again? And can you tell me if it's back? Sorry, this is really annoying, isn't it? I will make sure you get good information in between all the annoying technology stuff. Thank you. All right, I'll try and speak up. So yes, I did mention minimum requirements for existing employees. Basically, if they're existing part-timers, then there's options there. Actually, why don't I just move on to that slide and explain it? And then if I don't get it, then I will come back to you. Thank you. I'm glad that sound is all right, but let me know if that changes. So let's talk about a few dollars just to give you a quick example. So if you've got 5 employees that are eligible for this, then you potentially get $140,000 over the next 12 months from the federal government. Now, in some states, like if you're in New South Wales, then most of your courses are going to be completely free because the New South Wales government, bless them, is offering free qualifications to anyone on this program. Some of the other states are subsidising them, well, they're all subsidising them to some degree. So worst case though, if you have to pay like full fees for everything, and if we help you do it, we can help you find some training providers that, you know, will wait to get paid until you get paid or whatever, so that you're not, because one of the risks obviously is you don't want to sign people up for a course and then find that you don't get the wage subsidy and then you're out of pocket. So we'll make sure that that doesn't happen. But you'll get, you know, at least 111,000. That's in worst case. Plus, you can also get payroll tax rebates. You can get work cover rebates, and then depending on what qualifications people have already got, you might get another $4,000 per person from the state if they don't have other formal qualifications. And then the example that I just mentioned when we're starting is that Victoria has got a thing that if you hire a woman over 45 and it's a new hire, additional person, you get $20,000. I think if you hire anybody under 25, you get $10,000. If you hire a single parent, you get $20,000. If you hire, there's a whole lot of things that they've put on their list of if you hire anybody who, I think pretty much the only people that you don't get any funding, extra funding for in Victoria, men between 25 and 44, sorry guys, obviously considered to be advantaged already, who are not single parents and haven't been unemployed for more than a few weeks, etc., etc. But if you look at that Victorian example, pay them $56,000, get $28,000 from the federal government, and that doesn't have to be full time, that could be like 3 or 4 days a week. $28,000 from the federal government, $20,000 for the state government as a wage subsidy, plus another $4,000 towards the course. So basically you're looking at paying $4,000 a year for the first year to hire that person, plus the extra bits, you know, superannuation and holidays and things like that. But yeah, it's not bad. So it's worth considering. Let's look at this for your existing people, but it is also worth considering whether now might be a really good time to try and get a couple more people on and put them on 12-month contracts and, you know, they don't really cost you anything. It's kind of crazy. So a couple of interesting statistics, just because that's what my brain is like. Since they changed the rules around, and there are 220,000 people signed up so far over the last year and a bit, 60% of them have not been in traditional trades. So 60% of them are doing digital marketing courses, certificate for and entrepreneurship, leadership diplomas, project management, workplace health and safety, all sorts of other things that are quite useful, but not trades. 40% of them now are in small business, which is awesome. 20% have been for employees over 35. Construction, and that grabbed them the first because of course they are set up for apprenticeships, they know how this works. But these numbers at the bottom here are the ones that I got just before Christmas. There were nearly 250,000 jobs being advertised on Seek. 100,000 plus in hospitality. Sorry, hospitality people, that's tough. But the thing with that is that you just, if you're going to hire somebody, this might be an opportunity to hire somebody who's got the right attitude, everything else that you want, but is missing a couple of the key skills, and the government will pay to upskill them as well. So it's kind of a chance to perhaps, usually it's an employer's market. We can just go out and hire who we want and make a big long shopping list of what skills we want. At the moment, it's, as you know, not so much like that. So it's like, how do we fill the gaps ourselves? Which is, back in my day, that's kind of how it used to be done. You'd hire somebody and then you'd upskill them. Okay, let me show you a few little examples of specifically how you could use this. And this will also explain the part-time, the definition, the existing worker definition, that sort of thing. Hopefully this will be useful. Let me just check the chat first. Our existing casuals or part-timers getting paid approximately $400 a week, would they qualify? I will explain that to you right now, Lorraine, because you would have to change something, but it might be worth making the change. Let me just check these other questions. No, this is not just for Victoria. Sorry, I was just giving Victoria as an example. But the 50% is available in all of the states. So actually, we have got some really good questions here. Let me just go through them. If you're a director of a company, but are also shown as an employee and draw wages, no. So directors are not eligible. If you're a major shareholder or director, you're not. What quite a few people do in really small businesses, one partner might be the director and the shareholder, and the other person, they put them on wages, even if they're not right now, they put them on, and that's fine. You're allowed to do that. But if you're actually currently a director, then no. Is there an end date for this initiative? You have to be signed up by the end of March this year, so like 8 weeks away. And the waiting list to get signed up is anything from 2 to 6 weeks. We're still waiting to see, there's a bit of a queue for the sign up, and we're waiting to see whether they're going to cut it off hard on that date or whether they're going to let you get through if you're in the queue. We don't know the answer to that yet, so I don't want to promise that you will get through in the queue. So basically you need to get cracking is the short version. Is it 45 years minimum age? No, that was just an example for Victoria. Sorry about that confusing example. It's eligible for anybody for any age for the federal 50%. It's just if you want to claim extra money from the state governments, they tend to have criteria around age or disadvantage and things like that. But the federal one is open to absolutely anybody, any age, any qualifications. Good question, Michael. What if someone leaves your employment while in this program? Can the government claw back? So they won't claw back unless you are doing something dodgy, basically. So if you sign up a whole bunch of people and you don't put them on the course and they never participate and they don't do anything, and then 6 months later they leave, and then you could get it cancelled in those situations. But as long as they are enrolled in a course and engaging in it, then they don't, basically if they leave after 6 months, the subsidy stops then. You upload the last pay slips from up to their last day and you get paid that, but of course you don't get any more money. And because this thing is going to finish in March, if they left in say July, you couldn't replace them and get someone else on the subsidy, so you only get the money for the person while they were there. What is the period of time from new employee to no longer being eligible to enroll in the program? Okay, let me show you that. I will come back to that in 1 second, Ian, because it's my next slide. Do you only get half if they're part-timers? No, that's the weird thing. You still get a 50% subsidy, no matter whether they work 1 day a week or 7 days a week. You just upload the pay slips and they just give you half the money back. What about if you receive a profit but aren't a director? So Kirsty, that's going to depend if you're a shareholder, but if you're not a major shareholder and you're not a director, you might want to consider changing yourself onto PAYG wages for a period, possibly. What happens if you've enrolled someone since the program started, done anything yet? Sorry, Tanya, I think we're missing a couple of words. If you don't mind asking me that again, I'll make sure I come back and answer it. So let me show you the definitions of new, etc., so that you can make some sense. So first opportunity, easiest, most straightforward opportunity, is that anybody that you've already hired full-time or less since the end of October last year. So if they worked for you November, December, January, anybody that you've hired within the last 90 days, full-time or part-time, they are eligible. If you hired them up to close to 90 days ago, then you need to get cracking. All you need to do is lodge the expression of interest part of your application, and then it can take a while to organise the rest, but you just have got to do that bit in the first 90 days. So think about anyone that you might have hired before Christmas. Okay, anybody that you hired part-time in the last 12 months. So you've got a whole year of them being part-time and they're still counted as a new worker. So if you've had someone working 20 hours a week for you or something, and they've only been there since the middle of last year, that is fine. Now, also for those of you in the states that had more lockdowns, the southern states from Brisbane, if you've had somebody who worked for you and then they went away and they came back then you might still be able to get it. So two things to think about. One is this applies to anybody. If they left and they came back 6 months or more later, then they're counted as new workers. They can work for you 20 years, take a year off, come back, that's fine. But also, if you were in lockdown last year for weeks or months, then a lot of the people that are approving it will actually take that into account by going, well, they worked for you for 12 months, but they actually weren't there. Well, they've worked for you for 14 months, but they weren't there for 3 of them. So we'll just count that as 11 months and still approve it. So if for those of you, especially in Victoria and New South Wales, if you've hired anybody probably since like late 2020 and part-time, or late last year full-time, then it's worth having a look at it. Does that make sense? Okay, anybody that you're intending to hire between now and are there 31 days in March? I don't know, between now and the end of March, definitely want to put them on. So basically, if they've already hired them and they've been full-time for less than 90 days or part-time for less than 12 months, those ones are easy. Now, you can also get approval if you've got casuals, and I know a few people ask questions about casuals. So here's something to think about with casuals. I saw a sort of statement the other day by somebody, Fair Work or somebody, you need to check for yourself, obviously, but that says that if somebody, they've now made a ruling that if somebody has been a casual with you for 12 months or more on regular kind of casual hours, then you've got to offer them the opportunity to go part-time. And if you don't, then they can come back to you. They can be casuals with you for a couple of years, and then they can come back at the end and say, I want my holiday pay, etc., etc. So there's always been a risk in hiring casuals long-term for that reason. Now, I'm just mentioning that because under this program, if you've got casuals and you upgrade them from casual to part-time, even if they stay on the same hours, or you upgrade them to full-time or whatever, they can have been casuals with you for ages. And as long as you apply for this at the point that you're upgrading them, so the clock doesn't start again, you can't upgrade them and then count 90 days or whatever, then you can get the subsidy for them. So there's a really good opportunity, like say you're in retail or hospitality. If you've got, for most states, the minimum hours that they have to do for this is 15 hours a week averaged over the month. So say 60 hours a month, if you think of a month as a 4-week period. So if you've got casuals that are doing 60 hours every 4 weeks for you, you could turn them into part-time under this program and get half their wages back for a year. So that's kind of not to be sneezed at. And potentially the other benefit of that is that they might stick around a little bit longer if you put them on, certificate 2 or 3 in retail or hospitality or something, or barista course, or what did I see with someone the other day who's putting them on cert 2 or 3 in holiday park, something or other. There's a certificate 3 in cleaning, plus all the business courses. So there's a really good opportunity for anybody who's in one of those industries that is really struggling at the moment, like travel, tourism, hospitality, retail, to switch your casuals onto a part-time contract and get half their wages back for a year. The other part that's related to that is, and I will come and check for questions in a moment because I know there are some sitting there, is that part-timers that you upgrade to full-time. So even if they've been part-time with you for ages, you can upgrade them to full-time and potentially pay them the same, but get twice the hours. And once again, you've got to do that at the point when they do it. So just a little kind of disclaimer thing, that those last 2 don't get free courses. Like New South Wales won't give them free courses because they're not counted as new for that. But they still get the 50% wage subsidy. So that's one of the really important pieces. Let me just check the questions because there are a lot. Okay, where do I start? I'm a company director and I haven't received any payments from them before. Can I apply it? No, because you're a director, so directors can't get it. Where is there a list of eligible courses? I will show you a few in a moment, and then I will show you how to find them. I'll make sure that I'll show you enough that you can do this yourself if you want to. What happens if you've enrolled a person? Thanks, Tanya, for joining me. What happens if you've enrolled a person in a training program since the program started but haven't claimed anything as yet, e.g. an apprentice starting the mid of last year? Yeah, that's a tricky one. So you haven't been claiming the wage subsidy for your apprentice at all, Tanya? There might be, so shoot us a message and we'll talk to one of the decision makers. You probably can't backdate it, but there may be some way don't know. You might have to enroll them in an additional course or something like that, but let's have a look and just see. You might be able to kind of like pause their apprenticeship one day, start it again the next day. It's probably a no, but we can have a look just in case. If you hire someone, do they have to do training? Yes, and the training has to be related to their job. So you can't hire a beauty therapist and put them on a plumbing course or something. But presumably, if you're hiring somebody to do a job, then it won't hurt for them to be upskilled in that thing that you're training them in anyway. So if you hire a bookkeeper, then putting them on an advanced bookkeeping course is probably going to be to your benefit. Now, what I would do is I would choose a training provider where that is going to interfere as little as possible with your workplace. So you want one who's going to give them tasks to do that are workplace related. So if you do, for example, the leadership and management qualification, their tasks might be things like chairing meetings or doing performance reviews or whatever. So it'll be stuff that you want them to do anyway. Having said that, there's an expectation. Different states have different expectations, but Victoria, for example, if they're part-time, they expect you to give them 1 hour a week to work on their course. If they're full-time, they expect you to give them 3 hours a week to work on it, but it can be working on it in the context of their workplace. So you do need to train them. It is an expectation. But I mean, if someone said to me, I'll pay you $7,000 a quarter to subsidize your person if you give them an hour a week to do a study, it kind of adds up, doesn't it? Okay, what about those that are casual and then went part-time? If you're converting them from casual to part-time at the time that you apply, that is fine. Otherwise, if they're already part-time and have been for a while, you would need to convert them to full-time because you've got to upgrade them at the time of applying if they're already employed by you, if that makes sense. Are we going to get a copy of the recording? Yes, we can send you a copy of the recording if you like. That's no problem. Only if they work regularly and systematically with the casuals. Yes, that's right, Tanya. So we're talking about examples. If you've got casuals that are doing regular hours for you and have been doing it for 12 months, then you may as well claim this. The casuals being upgraded to part-time or full-time, do they need to attend training? Most of the training providers that we work with are doing the courses online, so there's no leaving the workplace to do it. So it's not like the traditional trades where you've got to go off the tape or anything like that. They'll be doing something online or working on it. Oh yes, Rachel said we'll send a copy of the recording. Casuals versus permanent has been an ongoing issue for decades. Yes, it has. Some casuals don't want to lose the loading. So something to think about, Brent, is that you may decide to keep paying them the loading because if you get half of the whole pay back, it's still worth it. So say their award rate is $25 an hour and you're paying them $30 an hour to give them the loading, and then you want to convert them into part-time, they're not going to want to go back to $25 an hour. But if you converted them to part-time and paid them $30 an hour and you got 14 of it back, because it's capped at 14, then they're costing you $16 an hour instead of 25. So you're still well ahead. Hopefully that maths is making sense. Will the funding only last for 1 year? Yes, it's 12 months of funding. So what we're doing is we've used it to hire some additional people to try things out that we haven't done before and see if we can make them work. So we've launched a podcast, for example, which we wouldn't have done if we didn't have someone on the traineeship subsidy to do it. And then we go it, see if it works, and it gives us a year to try things out. The requirement to convert them to permanent does have some conditions, so it's not just if they work 12 months. Yes, that's true. And please don't take advice from me on that part of it. I'm not an industrial relations person. It's just worth looking into, because if you do find that you have to convert them anyway, then you might as well convert them and get the subsidy. I'd love a copy of the recording. Yeah, maybe we'll just send the recording out to everybody. That's probably the easiest if it's all right with everybody. How do we know which courses are eligible? I will show you in 1 second. Can we apply? Yeah, that's a good question, Dion. And how can we apply if we intend to hire somebody? The person is not yet selected. And I would really like to do the same thing. So I'm trying to hire quite some people and I haven't got the right people yet. Unfortunately, no, you've got to have a name to put in the box by the end of March. So you can start the process, but you've got to have had that human identified by the end of March. Who are the training organisations that you work with? Does it only apply to those training organisations? It applies to anybody that's been approved at the different levels of government, which I'll explain that to you in a second. And that the subsidy does end after 12 months. Yeah, that's true. So it depends how long your casuals usually last. If you have a lot of turnover in casuals, then it's probably worth it. Yeah, all right, I'll send you the footage. Okay, back to the questions, and I'll come back and check the questions again in a moment. I know there's another bunch there that I haven't got to, sorry guys, but try and be a bit efficient with the time. Okay, here are a few examples of courses for new employees, and then I will show you in a moment some of the examples for existing employees. So the way that it works is that the federal government has said anybody who does a course on this list, and they've got new employee list and an existing worker list, can get funding. The existing worker list has been getting shorter, and the interpretation of it has been getting tougher, but there is still a multi-page list for existing staff. For new workers, they need to be approved at the federal level for the wage subsidy. And this is course and training provider. Then the state has to say, we will allow you to do a traineeship in this qualification. And then the state has to say, and we will allow you to do it with this training provider. And these are the ones that we're going to give money to deliver it. So if you're not worried about a subsidized course, you can use a broader range of training providers. If you want, we tend to try and direct our people, first of all, of course, to the funded ones that are still good training organisations. Occasionally there's not funding for one, depends if you're doing something specialty that the government doesn't think is important. So there's 3 separate lists. Basically, there's state list of these courses, federal list of these courses, state list of funding, and then of course it's divided into existing workers and new workers. And the reasoning behind that, I think, is that if you're hiring someone new, they're not really bothered about what course you put them on, they just want them upskilled. But because so many people sort of took advantage of it for existing workers, they went, okay, we're only going to do existing workers for those areas that we consider to be skills shortage areas. And they do have requirements that you have someone to supervise them. So you couldn't put someone, for example, on a plumbing course unless you've got a qualified plumber there to supervise them. So that's just a little list of the sort of examples of the range. Like you could do anything from certificate 2 in hospitality to advanced diploma in civil construction supervision or something. But these are some of the common ones that people pick. There's a certificate 4, is it on there? Yeah, certificate 4 in entrepreneurship and new business, which has got some really interesting subjects in there about growing your business, business planning, digital marketing, that sort of thing. But then if you've got, part-timers in hospitality, you can put them on a cert 2 in hospitality or whatever. So there is quite a range. Let me just check the questions, and then I'm going to give you some ideas for how you might want to be able to use this, things that just some food for thought to get your brain going on it. Let me just check our questions because we've got a few more. Are the courses subsidised too, or is that out of pocket for the company? So if you are in New South Wales and your person fits into the new worker category, so they've been part-time for less than 12 months, full-time for less than 3 months, they're completely free. New South Wales government pays for everything. In other states, the courses are subsidised. Most of them are subsidised. Just if you do something particularly unusual, it might not be. Where can I find a list of eligible qualifications for existing workers for WA? If you go to the WA state government site and do a search for approved traineeship qualifications, you should find it. If not, send us a message afterwards and we will send you the information. Would a certificate 4 in dance teaching and management be something that would be covered in the approved training? Gabrielle, depends which state you're in. I have seen it in some states. I'm pretty sure it's not in Queensland because I already looked for it there. But Rachel, you might want to pop something in the chat. I think you did a proposal for someone with dance, or I could be making that up. But we can check for you, Gabrielle, if you tell us what state. Do they need to do a course to get funding? Yes, they need to do a course to get funding, but it can be part-time, online, and you want the course to be stretched out over 12 months because once the course finishes, the funding finishes. So you don't want them to do too much at once because if they get through it too fast, your funding stops. Is there a minimum qualification level? Yes, certificate 2 is the minimum level. South Australia, Gabrielle, would have to check for you on that one. Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head. Do the employees have to be Australian PR citizen? If they're on a working visa or a bridging visa, can they do it? You have to check the class of visa, Lee, and it's does it have a P in front of it? So there's a list that I can send you if you want to message us afterwards with telling you which ones have got the P. Those are the ones that are eligible. How much is the course subsidy in Victoria? It depends on which course. So they're very keen in Victoria on anything kind of construction related and things like that. Not so keen on hairdressing. So if you want to tell us that's what industry you're in, I can probably check that for you. And let me just answer these last couple of questions. And if a full-time employee has been on maternity leave and coming back casual, Were they on maternity leave for 12 months, Tracy, and did you pay them is probably the question. And you have to get this funding, you'd have to bring them back part-time rather than casual, and they'd have to have been away for 6 months, not on your payroll. Full-time employees employed for more than 12 months can be covered, or just after October. Depends what industry it comes out. So I'll show you in a second some of the jobs that you can still get it for existing workers. Does the rebate only remain for the term of the qualification, only for the 12 months of commencement? Okay, so it's for 12 months or until the end of the course, whichever happens first. So you don't want them to race through and finish the course, because then your subsidy will stop. So for some industries, for example, we've done a bit of work with some real estate agents, and they might want to put their employees on a certificate 4 in real estate so that they can be licensed and they can hand out keys and things. You don't want them to take 12 months to do that, because they won't be any use to you until they're qualified. So what those ones are doing is they're putting them on something like a certificate 3 in business, which they're taking the whole year to do, getting the wage subsidy, and then using that to pay for them to do a quick real estate course so they can get licensed faster. So you're allowed to do 2 qualifications at once, as long as only one of them is being claimed under this program. Hopefully that answered your question, Ian. If it didn't, let me know. If someone lives in another state, can they still access New South Wales for free training? It's where you live. So you have to either live or work in New South Wales to be claiming it. So if you live on the border, but you're working on the other side, that's fine, as long as you have a footprint in that state in some way. Okay. All right, let me show you some of the ideas that we've been brainstorming, see if you can use any of them. So, and I touched on this one already, if you've got existing part-timers, you could make them full-time for 12 months and the wage cost could stay the same. Now, as you would know, probably some of you, that if you take your casuals and you make them part-timers, then there are a whole bunch of rules about you can't just chuck them back as casual. But if you've got part-timers, you can give them a 12-month full-time contract and then an agreement that they go back to 12 months after that time if you wanted to. So you could basically double their hours, they cost you the same, and you just have it for the period of time of the wage subsidy if you wanted to, and if they agreed and they wanted to do it too, of course. The casuals one, touched on, if you've got casuals, you could make them part-time and halve the wage bill. If you are hiring one person, and we are doing this at the moment, then hire a second one on a 12-month contract, and it could cost you the same as if you're just hiring one person and get some extra projects done. So this is, I mean, everybody's going to have a different angle on it, but to me, the biggest opportunity in this is to get, you know, anybody that's got half an entrepreneur brain has got 1,000,001 things in your ideas for later list that you go, oh, if only I had the time and the people, I'd do this and I'd do this and I'd do this. So this is kind of a chance to get those extra bodies and actually do some of those things, which is kind of cool. And then I touched on that if someone's been away for 6 months, so yeah, if they've been on maternity leave, as long as they weren't getting paid by you for that 6 months, then you could rehire them and you could claim it to bring them back in. Now, I'm going to quickly check the questions, and then I'm going to explain the existing employees thing, because that's a little bit more complex and I want to make sure I don't put you wrong on that. So checking the questions first. Because the courses in New South Wales are free, can we still apply for this program? If you're in New South Wales, Laura, yes, you can. What happens if you end up selling the business within the 12 months? What we have been told is that it transfers over to the new employer. So potentially you could sell them with a subsidy in place, which would be kind of nice. It depends, I guess, how you structure it, and if you lay off all your people and they rehire them, but if you're rolling them into a new, you know, they're still maintaining their employment. Okay. That's what questions got on it, correct? Right, existing workers. So here is the guts of it. So here's the words out of the actual rules. It said existing workers are only able to get this BAC payment, which is the 50% subsidy, in the following cases. So where they do what they call a trades-based Australian apprenticeship. So the obvious easy version of that is if you're going to put anyone on any kind of apprenticeship to do a trade, then you should be claiming this 50%. And the other thing that I haven't mentioned, because it will just make it more complicated, is that you get 50% for year 1, but then you get 10% for year 2 and 5% for year 3. So it does, if anyone's doing a course for more than 12 months, it does actually extend out. That was something that they added in a couple of months ago. So it's just like a little bonus, really. But now here's what's interesting. there is a list, a 13-page list, it's called Appendix E, of what they define as trades-based Australian apprenticeships. And it includes all the obvious things like plumbing, but it also includes cookery and things, but it includes greenkeeping, cyber security, some IT courses. What else is on there? All sorts of things that you wouldn't think of as traditional trades, basically. Certificate for and Workplace Health and Safety is another one that's on there, and I'll explain that in a moment. That was actually, a lot of people were using that one, saying, well, I need a safety person trained, until a certain large chicken franchise that shall remain nameless decided every single one of their teenage employees needed to be doing a certificate for and work health and safety as an existing worker. And of course, the state governments went bananas and went, no, you can only use this if the person's actually doing a job that relates to this course. So here's the definitions. They've basically got to be doing a certificate through 3 or 4, it's 12 months or more, and they've got to be listed on these occupational outcome list, which is basically the kind of skilled worker list. I won't bore you with too much of the detail, but that's basically how you define an existing worker. But let me show you a few examples, might be better. So here are some that we've been doing for people. So anyone who's in a trade, fine, easy peasy. In fact, you probably don't even need us to help you, just go ahead and do it. IT, you can put them on cybersecurity course. If you've got some technicians doing like home sustainability assessment stuff, so whether it's, solar technicians or double glazing or whatever, any of that kind of stuff, you can get, this is for existing staff who might have worked for you for 20 years. In New South Wales and WA, it's coming to an end soon if it hasn't already, because the course is expiring, but there's a certificate for an environmental sustainability, which is basically just a certificate for in business with an environmental flavour. You can put office managers on that. There is a safety officer Cert for and Workplace Health and Safety is on the existing worker list. It got badly abused by people taking advantage of it. So now, though, if you have got someone whose job is actually safety, which includes HR, so if you've got an HR manager or a safety officer or someone who's genuinely responsible for the safety of others, you can put them on a certificate for and Workplace Health and Safety and get a wage subsidy. The sting in the tail of that one is that you've got to have someone else in your organisation who has got safety skills, who can supervise them when they're training. So that's knocked a few people out. But if you're in a high-risk industry, that's worth talking about, because especially these days with all the extra safety burdens on business. And anything to do with civil construction, there's 1,000,001 courses for you guys and lots of funding for it as well. Let me just quickly, that's an example of the paperwork that just comes through when they are approved. Now, before I step you through the how to claim it, I'll just double check these last questions. No, we're all good. Oh dear, I've silenced everybody. Perhaps I've made everybody's eyes get crossed. Okay, here is the little list, and we will send you out this copy list so that you've got it. This is what you need to do if you want to do it yourself. So you basically just figure out what courses would suit your business and your location, because each state has got different courses that are approved. Think about any new staff that you want, any skills gaps that you might want to fill. Think about any existing staff that will be eligible under the criteria that we've just talked about that you'd like to upskill. Check that they meet the federal and the state rules. Make sure that you've got someone to supervise them. So if someone's working by themselves in the middle of nowhere, they can't be on a training program because there's nobody there for them to check, their training with. That's just the way the rules work. Check what other state-based incentives you can get and what the timeline is on those. So for example, in Queensland, it's 90 days after a person starts that you've got 90 days after they start to claim this if they're full-time. But for the $20,000 that Queensland gives you if you hire someone under 25 in most of Queensland, except for Brisbane, Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast, then you have to do it within the first 12 weeks, which is actually 84 days. So just make sure you know all your dates and what's available. Choose a training provider, choose one that's got funding, preferably. And then you organise what they call an ASIN, Australian Apprenticeship Support Network. They're paid by the government to sign people up. If any of you hire tradies or things, you'll know about them. Then you organise your sign up, then you lodge your wage claim, and then you lodge your claim for the other incentives. So we can help you with that, or you can just work your way through those steps. Well, once you are registered, then it's easy. So you just, at the end of the quarter, I get a text and an email from the ASIN, the Apprenticeship Centre, and they send me a reminder to say, please fill in this form. You just fill in a form to go, yes, they still work here. Yes, they've been engaging in the training. Yes, I'm not doing anything dodgy or naughty. This is a real thing. And then you upload their pay slips for the last 3 months. And then within 14 days, you normally get the money in your bank account. Now, what's meant to happen is they're meant to send it in the first week of the new quarter. So the October, November, December ones, for example, that was supposed to happen in the first week of January. They are so busy, as you can imagine, that I only just about a week ago got the link to upload my previous quarter of last year, and I uploaded it and I got something last Friday to say that we'll get paid in the coming week. So you need to think about that in terms of your cash flow, that it will probably be a month after the end of the quarter that you get reimbursed. It's a reimbursement rather than a prepayment. So if anyone's done JobKeeper, it's kind of the same, but it won't solve your immediate cash flow issues, but it will certainly help your profit. Okay, a couple of questions that come up occasionally. What if my people don't pass? That's okay. It's not linked to them passing. It's linked to them engaging in the course. So if they refuse to speak to their training organisation and they don't fill out anything and they don't do anything, then the training organisation can notify the government and they can cancel your wage subsidy. But as long as they're actually participating, that's fine. And is it going to take up a lot of time for the supervisors? Well, no, the training provider is supposed to drive this, but someone is going to need to sign off to go, yes, they did these activities and things like that. So just typical workplace training if anyone's done that sort of thing before. Let me check the questions and then I'll just got one more thing I want to tell you and then we'll wrap up. Is there an age limit for staff eligibility? No, there's a lower age limit. They've got to be 17 or they can do it as a school-based traineeship. So it's got to be 17 or have finished year 10, or they can do it as a school-based traineeship. Upper age limit, no, there's not. And some of our people that work for us can be quite old, but I won't mention them. Okay, I've just had a reminder from Rachel. For the part-timers, the minimum hours that they need to do depends on the course. So Victoria says it's got to be averaging 13 hours a week. The rest of the states say 15 hours a week. But if you want them to do a higher level course, like a certificate for or a diploma or something, then most of the time there's an expectation that they'll be doing like 21 hours, so 3 days a week, to be able to do a job of that magnitude and fit in the training and everything as well. So we can look at that individually for you, case by case. Is the subsidy a taxable income source for the business or is it a reimbursement? That is an excellent question, Matthew, and I'm not an accountant and I don't know. I have been assuming that it is a taxable income source, but if there's any accountants here, they might be able to tell us. I don't know, was JobKeeper taxed? I'm not sure. That's an excellent question. We'll have to ask somebody who knows more about accounting than me. I'm a chemist, so that's not my skill set. But very good question. If we do have any accountants in the group, I'd be interested to know. Okay, so here's the thing to think about. If you get us to help, so you can do that, that's fine, we'll send you our slides. This is something to think about though. This bureaucracy, I would assume, is not your core business because you're not silly. And you're probably busy either because business is booming or busting, because there's really not much in between for most people from what I've seen at the moment. But either way, whether you're in deep trouble because you haven't got any customers or you've got too many, it's still for some reason end up being just as busy. Now, you are very welcome to do this yourselves, and I really hope that what I've given you today is enough for you to be able to do it yourselves. We do keep running into people whose applications have been rejected because they coded them wrong or they're given bad advice. Like, one of the problems is that the apprenticeship centres, who are great, but they have been so busy that I was talking to one a couple of months ago and they said, oh, it's going to be fine. We've just hired 100 new people and they start on Monday. And it's like, how can you get good advice from an organisation where they've got 100 new people starting on the same day? So if you've got a really simple one, it's fine. But if you've got anything that needs questions, then those ones tend to get rejected unless you've got somebody fighting for it along the way. So what I would suggest that you do is that you get us to do all the setup, like your accountant probably did for you for JobKeeper if you're eligible. And then all you have to do is do the quarterly uploading of the pay slips. So you carry on with your core business. The way that we do that is we do all the work. When it's approved, then you just forward 10% of what you've got approved to us. So we charge you 10% for doing it. You keep the rest, just carry on doing what you do best, which presumably is not manage all this. Now, if you're having any kind of cash flow challenges or you're worried about what if I don't get it or whatever, then we're happy to wait until the first grant money hits your account. Like, we are not doing this to try and take money off people. We really want to get this out to as many people as possible. So if cash flow is an issue at all, just talk to us and just don't pay us anything until you get paid. That's completely fine with us. Now, probably the best thing to do to figure out, Rachel, can you drop it in the chat? I don't know if you have yet. Let me have a little look. So I will just check the chat, because we put together a bit of a quiz where you can just quickly go through it and we can have a look at it and see if we can help you or not. So basically the first step is, if you give us some info and give us your approval to go ahead and do it for us, we won't actually lodge anything without your permission, but we'll do the assessment. We can give you a link to a little quiz to do that, to make it easy, or if you'd rather talk it through over the phone, we can do that. Whatever's easier for you. And then after you've done that quiz and we've analysed it, then we'll let you know whether we think there's an opportunity there for you. And if it's something really simple, we'll just tell you, because we are quite busy now. So if it's something really simple, we'll just go, look, do it yourself. This is all you need to do. And if you've got the time, you can just do that yourself. If it's a bit more complex, and if we know that you're going to be better off to get us to do it because you'll get more money or you've got more chance of getting it approved, then we'll tell you that as well. So then you can make the decision of going ahead or not going ahead. Let me just check and see if Rachel has popped that in the chat. Yes, thank you very much, Rachel. So she's just put a little link to a quiz in the chat if you want to grab it from there. Otherwise, we'll email it out to you later on anyway. But if you want to just do that form and just tell us like what business you're in, how many staff you've got, how many are part-time, full-time, casual, if you're hiring anybody new, then we can have a quick look at that. If you do that quiz, that will go straight to Rachel and she will look into it for you. What she'll do, because we do have a bit of a queue at the moment ourselves, is she will go through them all straight away. And if there's anything that's going to have a deadline, like you hired somebody 2.5 months ago, then she will process those immediately for you. Anything that she looks at and goes, there's no new people, they're all only a month, then it might be next week before she gets back to you, but she will make sure that she prioritizes them so that anything that is urgent gets done, so you won't miss out. Oh, thank you, Trevor, that's very kind of you. So the other thing is that we are all working from home at the moment, so if you want to talk to somebody, just oh, thank you, Rachel's put Elisa's mobile number in there, so we've got Elisa's email on the screen. Or you can give her a call on 0451 733 418. You can call our office number, but it will just go to voicemail because nobody's there. If you want to call Elisa, but I think the quiz is probably the quickest and easiest way to do. The approved qualification list depends what state you're in, Ian. You just go to your state government website. Well, it's 3 places basically. You've got to go to the federal government boosting apprenticeship commencements, Appendix E, if you Google that. Then you go to the state government, look at what's approved for traineeships, and then you go to the state government, what is funded, and then you go to the state government, which training providers are approved. So if you want to shoot us a message and tell us what the options are, or Ian, if you just want to do the quiz and we'll just work it out for you, that might be just as easy, whatever suits you. So pause for breath. Thank you, everybody. That went a little bit longer than I expected because we had some questions, but I really hope that I have given you something useful to think about. Don't think too long because it's nearly finished, but we would love to help if we can. And if you do it yourselves, then that's awesome too. We've achieved what we wanted to do today, but just grab that quiz link, fill in the quiz, we'll come back to you and go, these are the people we recommend and these are the courses we recommend, and then you can make some decisions from there, really. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.